Welcome to the Flip and Castle podcast.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are diving into some pretty wild news today, folks. President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. There's a lot to unpack here. Like Kristi Noem becoming the Secretary of Homeland Security. That's definitely noteworthy.
Definitely interesting.
The one that really has us scratching our heads, the one we're really diving deep on today, is this new Department of Government Efficiency. And leading it, get this, Elon Musk. You know?
Wow.
Mr. Tesla and SpaceX himself, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy. So what's a tech CEO doing in government?
Well, it's certainly a bold move, but I think it's important to remember that Musk was a very vocal Trump supporter, even before the election.
Right.
He even campaigned on Trump's behalf. And he's very open about his vision for, really shaking up the federal budget.
During that campaigning, Musk made this really audacious claim that he could slash, get this, $2 trillion from the annual budget.
$2 trillion.
That's basically a third of the whole thing.
That's an incredible amount.
It makes you wonder has any administration ever even attempted cuts on that scale before?
That's a fantastic question. And honestly, that question is kind of at the heart of this deep dive. The scale of these cuts. It's really unlike anything we've ever seen in modern history. I mean, sure, there have been times where we've reduced the deficit.
Yeah.
Or, made some spending cuts here and there. But nothing even comes close to what Musk is proposing. So we're definitely going to have to dig into some historical precedents and see if there's any basis for cuts of that magnitude.
Okay, so even Musk himself admits that these cuts are going to cause some hardships, at least at first. But he promises that in the long run, it'll all be worth it. But I think the question on everyone's mind is how? How is he going to do this? What does government efficiency even mean in real-world terms?
Well, the specifics are still pretty vague at this point.
Yeah.
But we know from previous statements that Musk has made that he wants to target areas like defense spending, immigration, and potentially even social programs.
Yeah.
But you know what they say? The devil is in the details.
Yeah.
How do you begin to make the Defense Department more efficient without compromising national security? And what does streamlining even look like? We're talking about immigration processing.
Yeah.
And then there's the question of social programs. That's where things get really, really complicated.
Yeah, when you start talking about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid,
right?
These programs impact millions of Americans. So any cuts there could have just a massive ripple effect. So I guess the question is, are we looking at potential cuts to benefits, higher eligibility requirements, or is it something else entirely?
That's the big unknown right now.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we really need to dig deeper into all of these individual programs. We need to look at how potential cuts might actually impact beneficiaries, the economy as a whole, and the entire social safety net.
I mean, this brings up a really big question for me. Can a tech-focused, results-driven approach, like the one Musk uses, actually work in the world of government, which is, let's face it, all about
people, policies,
and politics? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Government is. It's notoriously complex. It's bureaucratic. It's not like a factory where you can just, optimize production lines for efficiency.
Right.
There are human needs. There are political considerations. And there are ethical implications that you have to factor in.
And let's not forget that Congress ultimately has to approve any major budget changes.
Yeah.
So with all the potential for political gridlock, pushing through cuts this drastic seems like a massive uphill battle. Is 2 years even enough time to accomplish something this ambitious? It's definitely a tight timeline, especially when you consider
the potential pushback they'll get from various interest groups and lawmakers. Let's be honest. Musk isn't exactly known for his patience.
No, he's not.
So we have a visionary entrepreneur with a really radical plan, a president who seems to be giving him free rein, and a mountain of potential obstacles. This is shaping up to be a clash of cultures, a battle of ideologies, and a fascinating deep dive for us.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. What really strikes me here is that Musk's vision, it seems to be coming from a very Silicon Valley mindset, this belief that technology and data can solve any problem, even something as messy and complicated as
It's like he's looking at the entire federal budget as just this giant optimization problem. But can you really apply those same principles of efficiency and disruption?
Just something like Social Security.
That's the core of this whole debate. Critics are saying that Musk's approach is oversimplifying the challenges that the government is facing. They say he's ignoring the social, the ethical, and the political aspects. that are a part of policymaking. And what about the human element? These programs we're talking about, they impact real people's lives. Imagine someone who relies on Medicare to pay their medical bills. Can an algorithm really understand the nuances of their situation and make fair decisions about their benefits?
It's a valid concern. When you focus too much on efficiency, you run the risk of unintended consequences, especially for people who depend on government assistance. It makes you think about how we balance things, like fiscal responsibility, with our obligation to protect the most vulnerable people in our society.
And speaking of vulnerable people, a lot of people are worried about the impact this could have on social programs, things like food stamps, housing assistance, job training programs, programs that help people get back on their feet.
And those programs are already working with really tight budgets, limited resources. If Musk is serious about these cuts, social programs are going to be right in the line of fire. So the question is, what happens to poverty rates, inequality, social mobility?
You mentioned poverty and inequality. Are there any examples from the past that we can look at to see how cuts like these might play out?
That's a great point. We could look at times when there were austerity measures and examine the social and economic effects. We could look at what happened in the UK in the 2010s when they made those big budget cuts. Did it lead to economic growth like they said it would? Or did it make inequality and hardship worse?
And what about Ramaswamy? He is kind of a mystery, a successful biotech entrepreneur who's suddenly jumping into politics. What's he bringing to the table? And how will this partnership with Musk even work?
It's an interesting dynamic for sure. Ramaswamy is a big supporter of free markets and limited government. His expertise is in healthcare and innovation.
But how are those skills going to translate to running a government department?
So will he be the voice of reason? Will he try to soften some of Musk's more radical ideas? Or will he push for even bolder changes, like market-based solutions? It's tough to say right now. We'll have to look closer at what Ramaswamy has said and done in the past to really understand his ideology and how that might shape his approach.
We also can't forget the legal and ethical stuff. Can a president even create a new department without Congress getting involved? And what about conflicts of interest? Musk has a ton of businesses.
Those are critical questions. Legally speaking, to create a new department, you need Congress to pass a law. Trump could try to get around that with executive orders, but that could lead to legal challenges and a big fight with lawmakers.
And then there's the whole conflict of interest thing. Musk's companies, like Tesla and SpaceX, they get government contracts and subsidies. Wouldn't him being in charge of government efficiency create a massive opportunity for him to favor his own companies?
Absolutely. There would have to be some really strong safeguards to make sure that Musk is making decisions that are best for the public and not just for himself. Ethics watchdogs and lawmakers. We're going to be watching this very closely.
So it looks like this Department of Government Efficiency is already facing a bunch of challenges, legal hurdles, ethical concerns, potential gridlock, and just the general complexity of government. It makes you wonder if this is even worth the effort.
It's definitely a risky move, but it also has the potential to really shake things up and force us to rethink how the government operates, whether it leads to actual progress or just more chaos. Only time will tell.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. This isn't just about budgets or bureaucracy. It's about the role of government. What should it do? How should it do it? And who gets to decide?
Exactly. This deep dive is taking us right into the heart of those questions. It forces us to think about different viewpoints on government, the balance between efficiency and fairness, and the possible consequences of making big changes.
This is a lot to think about. And this leads us to a really important point, the impact on you, the listener. How could these changes affect your life, your community, your future? It's something to really think about. As we keep exploring this situation, we've spent a lot of time talking about the possible effects of this new Department of Government Efficiency. But I think it's good to step back for a second and look at the bigger picture here.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I mean, this whole situation is really showing us this tension that's been building between people who think technology can fix anything and those who are a bit more skeptical.
Right.
The ones who worry about what might happen when things change too quickly.
Exactly. It's like there's this underlying question about how much we should rely on technology and how fast we should be innovating and how we deal with the disruptions that come with progress.
So you're saying this is about more than just Musk? It's about more than just his ideas?
Oh, definitely. This is a much bigger conversation about the role of technology in society.
And where do we fit into all of this? I mean, where does the average person fit in?
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? You, the listener, you're at the heart of this.
Yeah.
Because in the end, whether a government initiative succeeds or fails depends on how it affects people's lives.
So how do we figure this all out as citizens? How do we decide if these proposals actually line up with what we believe in?
I think it starts with being informed, with really understanding the issues and knowing what the potential trade-offs are. It means having conversations, listening to different perspectives, asking the right questions.
Like, what kind of government do we want? One that's all about efficiency, or one that also cares about fairness and equity?
Yeah.
And the needs of people who are struggling.
Exactly. It's not about choosing one side. It's about finding a way to balance things in a way that reflects what we believe as a society.
When we can't forget about the things we don't expect to happen.
Right.
We've talked about the possibility of people losing jobs, the impact on programs that help people, the chance that someone might do something unethical. How do we prevent those things?
It takes transparency, accountability, and a willingness to change course. If things aren't going right, it means having checks and balances to make sure no one abuses their power and that decisions are being made with the public's best interest in mind.
So this isn't just about sitting back and watching the news. It's about getting involved, holding our leaders accountable, and shaping the future we want.
Exactly. This is your government. It's your tax dollars. And these decisions, they're going to affect your life. Don't be afraid to speak up, to ask tough questions, and to demand answers.
That's a great point. It seems like this deep dive started with one news story, and now it's turned into this huge conversation about the future of government, the role of technology, and how much power citizens really have.
And that's what's so cool about these deep dives. It's about connecting the dots, exploring the complexities, and leaving you with more questions than answers.
Because sometimes the most important questions are the ones we haven't even thought of yet. So as this story continues to unfold, keep asking those questions, keep digging deeper, and keep challenging the status quo.
And never forget, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we build together.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story, and we'll be back with more analysis as we learn more. Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.